2013 yet.
We deal with this every spring. If we issue debt, we give them what we currently have and state that it's unaudited, and then we are complying with the annual. Your finance team is handling between all of us. You have a policy. You may recall that you passed a post-issuance compliance policy when we did the PBC refinancing, and also during the temp notes that we issued for this, we did one for each entity, because the PBC is technically kind of separate. So we have a policy. We have a finance team. You have a new financial advisor. We're annually disclosing what we're supposed to be disclosed. But what we will tell them is these are unaudited, and then we will follow up as we have them with the audited information.
Is there any potential audit findings that we should be disclosing in advance of these issues that might negatively impact?
Well, you made a noise. Are you making a noise? No?
I think some of that is going to be the subject of the executive session.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else have any questions?
Steve had something.
Steve, you had something?
Yeah, I was going to ask a couple of questions. First of all, I was going to say, in your experience working with these issues and understanding that there's a vast spectrum of cities, municipalities, counties, states that are involved in this, where do you see as the touch points that would trigger an SEC investigation? So specifically, I heard a lot of public-private partnership type of activity, which might trigger. I also saw cross-fund transfers that would mask the financial position of an entity. Any others that would be, like red flags that the SEC would kind of hone in on and investigate on?
Joe, please feel free to chime in on this. This really started with the pension fund.
With the pension underfunding.
And I will tell you, my understanding is the SEC investigated a lot of pension funds that they never got to the level of a cease and desist. It used to be, you would think the SEC would be most interested if there had been a default.
Sure.
But you can see that's not where they're really going anymore. They're getting ahead of any potential default.
Well, it sounds like they're taking into account, policy decisions over and above even disclosure and financial statements now to make their investigations stick.
Well, I don't, from the non-pension fund investigation, I don't know that there's any real common denominator.
You could notice in the Wes Clark matter, that wasn't, you would think, well, it's an interfund transfer and they're trying to under or overinflate a value, or maybe a public-private partnership. Wes Fund was, they didn't file their annuals. So if we could find a rhyme or reason with respect to it, we'd of course share that with you. But really, from the cases, these 10 that really have been since March or April of last year, there's not really a pattern that we see.
The only pattern I've seen to any of this is the SEC has increased the number of people in their enforcement sections and increased the number of investigations that they do. The IRS, which also does their own investigations on the tax-exempt side, they usually will announce in advance certain areas from year to year that they're going to focus on. But in addition to that, they also do random audits.
Sure.
And so the SEC, to my knowledge, hasn't announced any particular areas they were going to target. So how many of these have been random? How many of these have been because a certain fact came to their attention, and so they decided to target a particular issuer? I don't know.
Is there anything else, Steve?
No, that's fine.
Anyone else?
And I think one thing I want to reiterate, and Dottie can correct me if I'm not saying it completely correctly, but the crime is in non-disclosure or omission, not in whoops. That's not a crime. A crime is deliberate, or you should have known.
Okay. All right. Well, Dottie, Joe, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Appreciate the information, and we'll continue to lean on you.
Thank
remember,
you.
we're here to help.
Understand.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. So for those of you arriving, we're running a few minutes late, but we're going to call Gardner City Council to order. I'm going to invite everyone to please stand and join the governing body in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. First up on the agenda this evening is public comments. I would remind people that public comments can also be made after staff presentation of each new business item and before council has asked questions or makes comments. But with that being said, members of the public are welcome to use this time now to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you're interested, just step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. That being the case, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a council member that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Certainly entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion, Harrison, second Shute, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Consent agenda passes. New business item number 1. Consider approving expenditures for goods and/or services incurred by the electric department. Good evening again, Laura.
Hello. New business item 1 is per the governing body's direction. These are ones that, a good many of them you've already approved and you're seeing them coming through now, and the rest of them were below the threshold, or ones we had previously discussed, like the big operating fund ones, KMEA and whatever, that those were okay because we found all the documentation we needed to say they were okay. So on here, if you have any specific questions, let me know, but this is basically the payments that were under the threshold or that you've already approved, for the most part.
See,
Okay.
you're recommending we,
I have reviewed them, and I didn't see anything that I didn't see the first time they went through that I brought to your attention. So it's up to you, but you've asked them to come as new business.
All right. Is there anybody in attendance that would like to make public comment about new business item number 1? With no one coming forward, council, have any questions for Laura? Certainly entertain a motion.
I move we approve new business item number 1.
Second. Motion Harrison, second Freeman, that we approve new business item number 1. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? New business item number 1 passes. New business item number 2, consider adopting ordinance number 2443, amending Chapter 10.15 Trick Routes of the Gardner Municipal Code by repealing and replacing in its entirety Ordinance 2355. Brian, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. At the work session on January 21st, there was consensus by council to eliminate all truck routes within the city of Gardner. The one exception was US 56, which is under KDOT control. The reason Ordinance 2443 was presented as it is was to provide council with the following options. 1, adopt 2443 as per council consensus in the work session by removing truck routes defined as items B through E in section 10.15.030 in the ordinance, or adopt 2443 by keeping or removing individual routes listed in section 10.15.03 of the ordinance based on the additional information being provided tonight. Prior to